Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Nitamara. Today, I would like to presentation material about genre-based approach the course's instructional design.
The learning model is a conceptual framework that describes a systematic procedure in organizing learning experience to achieve learning objective. Teacher can carry out learning based on certain learning model or by following steps that are adapted to the situation and condition of student in each school. The learning aspect in curriculum 2013 is learning that encourage the student learning experience by using a scientific based approach. Teacher can apply various learning model with a science based approach in order to develop three domains of competence such as knowledge, skill, and attitudes as a whole. Many experts try to introduce and present their concept about genre. According to Arendt, 1997, there is no one learning model that is the best among the others. Each learning model has advantage and disadvantage. Therefore, in using the learning model, the teacher needs to adjust to various considerations, including the characteristic of the subject, kompetensi dasar or learning material, characteristic, and learning modalities of students who will study with this model, as well as other learning support facilities. According to Christie, 2005, 233 argues genre is a technical term for a particular instance of a text type. In addition, Highland 2007 defines genre is a term for grouping text together, representing how writers typically use language to respond to recurring situations in line with the definition above. Noonan, 1999, 300H also state, genre is a purposeful, socially constructed oral or written communicative event such as narrative, a casual conversation, a poem, a recipe, or a description. Different genres are characterized by a particular structure or stage and grammatical form that reflect the communicative purpose of the genre is questioned. Furthermore, Knapp and Watkins, 2009-21, argues genre is an organizing concept for our culture practice. Any file of genres constitute a network of contrasts according to a variety of parameters. Genre is a place, occasion, function, behavior, and interactional structure. It is very rarely useful to think of. It is a kind of text. Genre is culture competence in full. Knowing the appreciations principle for any genre, knowing the kind of margin you have with it, being able to vary it, knowing how to shift from one to another and how many factors would be involved in any such shift. In relation to several definition about Derevianka, 1990, give a simple definition that genre can be defined as the schematic structure of a text which helps it to achieve its purpose. The genre-based approach is a learning approach that helps students to be more competent in language, able to communicate through mastery of language skill, including listening, speaking, reading, and writing activities. So, for learning in class, curriculum 13. Certain learning models do not rule out the possibility that they will be perfect and in accordance with learning objectives when equipped with other learning models. This practice encourages the growth of learning innovation that have an impact on active learning situations. Problems related to learning models often arise among teachers. Teachers do not necessarily all understand learning models. Knowing isn't necessarily understanding. Therefore, there are times when the teacher knows a certain learning model and then forth it into a lesson plan. But when it's implemented, it turns out that it cannot. In the end, what had been planned was only in writing. This shows that the teacher knows but doesn't understand the learning model he has chosen. This fact indicates that teachers are still having difficulties in understanding and implementing learning model into learning in accordance with the characteristic of the subject being taught, kompetensi dasar or subject material, characteristic and learning modalities of students, as well as other learning support facilities. Therefore, the Directorate of High School Development considered it necessary to publish a manuscript of learning model so that it can be used as a reference in learning in accordance with the characteristic of the 13 curriculum. The learning model is a conceptual framework that describes a systematic procedure in organizing learning experience to achieve learning objective. The goal of genre-based approach. Learning language is a social activity. Language learning is a social activity and is the outcome of collaboration between the teacher and the student and between the student and other students in the group. Holiday, 1992, 19 described language learning as learning to mean and to expand one's meaning potential. Student learns language by interacting with others in powerful social activities. Students begin to understand the target language is a source they can use to make meaning. Students learn through language. As they learn the target language, students begin to interpret and organize reality in terms of that language. Language students learn about language. Learning about language means building a knowledge of the target language and how it works. It also means developing a language to talk about language. In summary, this model of language learning shows that social interaction enables language students to develop 1. A resources for making meaning. 2. A tool for interpreting and organizing reality. 3. Knowledge about language. The next explanation, characters of genre-based approach. There are a few characteristics of genre-based approach. For the explicit, makes clear what is to be learned to facilitate the acquisition of writing skill. For the systematic, provides a coherent framework for focusing on both language and context, and a needs-based ensures that course objective and content are derived from student need. Supportive gives teacher a central role in scaffolding student learning and creativity. Empowering provide access to the patterns and possibilities of variation in value text. And then the critical provide the resources for students to understand and challenge valued discourses. Consciousness raising increases teacher awareness of text and confidently advise students on their writing. The kind of genre in genre-based approach. Procedure is a text that describes how something is accomplished or operated through a sequence of steps. Narrative is a text that will amuse, entertain, and to deal with actual or precarious experience in different ways. For the descriptive is a text that describes a particular or specific thing through a detailed explanation about its features. For the recount is the text that will retell even for the purpose of informing. Report is a text that describes the way things are with reference to a range of natural, man-made, and social phenomena in our environment. Exposition is a piece of text that presents one side of an issue. The purpose of the exposition is to persuade the reader or listener by presenting one side of an argument, that is, the case or the case against. For the explanation is a text which tells process relating to forming of natural, social, scientific, and cultural phenomena. Explanation text is to say why and how of the forming of the phenomena. And the persuasive is any text where the main purpose is to present a point of view and seek to persuade a reader. A persuasive text can be an argument, exposition, discussion, review, and or even an advertisement. Stage of teaching genre-based approach. There are 5 stages of teaching English using genre-based approach. They are building the context, modeling, and deconstructing the text, joint construction of the text, linking related text, and independent construction of the text. And this is the advantage of genre-based approach. And the disadvantage of genre-based approach. The last part of explanation, conclusion. Genre-based approaches where teaching and learning focus on the understanding and production of selected genres of the text have been identified by Rogers 2001 as a major trend in English language teaching in the new millennium. Genre-based approach emphasize that is high here, others must be attended to for effective language use. All texts conform to certain convention, and that if a student is to be successful in joining a particular English language discourse community, the student will need to be able to produce texts which fulfill the expectation of its reader in regard to grammar, organization, and context. Genre-based approach recently has been adapted by the new Indonesian curriculum as the so-called competence-based curriculum or 2004 curriculum.